Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis v'ruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Chayei. It's Shabbos Mevorachim Chodesh Kislev, and in Lubavitch Chabad, this Shabbos we're celebrating the Shabbos of Kinus HaShluchim, where all the Shluchim of the Rebbe, the emissaries that are in the four corners of the world, gather together, the international Kinus HaShluchim, and give each one chizuk, support, empowerment to continue on their mission to spreading Yiddishkeit and bringing closer every single Yid to his heritage, to his source, to his true identity. First we'll start with tzedakah. Gedel tzedakah shemachereves esagula Mashiach now. Then we'll say a prayer, which actually two words from this prayer come from this week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha we have the first mission, the first shlichus. As the Rebbe spoke many times in Parshas Chayei, the shlichus of how Avram sends Eliezer on a mission to acquire a wife for Yitzchak, for his son Yitzchak. Now, there's a prayer that the Chazan says, let's say before Musaf, on Rosh Hashanah Kippur, the Chazan says a prayer before Musaf, before he repeats the Musaf, Chazaras HaShatz. And he speaks about his humility, Hineni ha'oni mimas, here I am, the one who's deficient. V'nifchad mipachad yoshev tilus Yisrael. He's trembling as he stands before Hashem. Lamoid l'schana l'fanav al Amma Yisrael asher shlachuni. It's a very serious undertaking to pray on the holiest of days for the entire nation, to be the one who represents the nation and represents the prayers, and through which all the prayers will rise. Even though I'm not really worthy of it. And he says, Chayei no matzliach darki. And he says, grant success to the mission. Grant success to the mission which I am undertaking, to stand and plead for mercy for myself and for those who have sent me. So he's asking for success, hatzlocha. Now, in this week's Parsha, Eliezer sees success in his mission. And the word hatzlocha is repeated many times in this week's Parsha, in Rashi and in the Parsha itself. And the words itself, where he says matzliach, the words itself comes from Pasuk Mem Beis, where Eliezer says that Hashem Elikei ni Avram im yeshcha no matzliach darki asher anochi hoilech aleh. He says again, he said, Hashem, God of my master Avram, if you would please make successful my way on which I go. So let's first go back to what we said, that the Chazan says this prayer, that it should be successful. Successful means we should see the results. And I think we've spoken about this many times. One of the grievances that people have in life is that they don't always see the results of their efforts. So if you're davening, you want to see the results, the fruits, the results. The davening is uftan, also says ken and darf uftan. The davening should accomplish everything that it can and should accomplish. Everything it can and should accomplish. So today's talk is about the power of prayer. And the power of prayer is beyond what you can imagine. What I'm going to say today is based on the Sikha of the Rebbe, Mekutei Sichas Chelik Chayei, volume 25, Amud 104 and 105. Over there, the Rebbe comes to a radical conclusion. He talks about the prayer of Eliezer, as is famous that when Avram Avinu sent him on a mission, and Eliezer prayed for the success of the mission, and then in the middle of his prayer, and he was asking to find a bride for Yitzchak, and the pasuk says, that Vayehihu terem kilo ledaber. And it was when he had not yet finished speaking, V'hinei Rivka yotzeis. Rivka came out. So in the middle of his prayer for success in the mission, Rivka appeared. And from this we learn that this was something so special that these words, in the middle of his prayer, Hashem granted his success for his prayer. So we see something special, and there's a medrash that says that something similar happened to Moshe and something similar happened to Shlomo HaMelech, but in their cases, first they had to finish the prayer and they were immediately answered. But Eliezer, in the midst of his prayer, he was answered. So there's explanations why over here it was more urgent, but we're not getting into that. I want to bring out the point, the success. He saw immediate success. So if we look at it that way, it seems like it was connected to the results of Eliezer's prayer, that therefore they were successful. But this is a paradox that I want to say from that Sikha and Chedluch HaFei. See there, the Rebbe goes on to explain that the truth is that in this case the success was beyond anything you could imagine, because it was already guaranteed from before. Because Avram already told Eliezer that an angel of Hashem will go with you. And that's why he saw this amazing success. And with this, the Rebbe answers a very big question, a Pashta Klotz Kasha, a very obvious question, and that is, in the beginning of the Parsha, when Avram sends him on the mission, and Eliezer says, but what happens if she won't want to come? Eliezer tells Avram, perhaps the woman shall not wish to follow me to this land. So Avram tells Eliezer, you can't take Yitzchak out of Eretz Yisrael under no circumstances. And he repeats the word, and he says that Hu Yishlach Maloche Lefanecha, Hashem will send an angel before you, V'lokachta Isha Lebni Misham. And he says it in a way of a certainty, like it's guaranteed. And he says, you will take a wife for my son from there. And then he says, if that doesn't happen, then you're absolved of this oath. But the point is, the Rebbe brings out that, what do you mean? How could Avram speak of it in such a certainty, if a person has free choice? Rivka, or whoever it is, the person that you're going to try to entreat to come back to be a bride for Yitzchak, that person has free choice, and maybe they won't want to come. How do you know? How did Avram know that the mission will be successful? And what the Rebbe answers is that over here we see that in this case, it was predestined. It was already in motion. There was nothing, like you say when there's a gzeira, there's, like we said, I mentioned many times, we say in davening, gzeira is toivos, good decrees. So this was something that was guaranteed because of the angel that Avram tells Eliezer, the angel will go before you. The angel going before you set up the whole thing, no problem, that it was going to work out guaranteed. And that's why, even before Eliezer finishes his prayer, technically speaking, Rivka left the house even before he started praying. So in other words, the Eibishter was already orchestrating things through this malach, that things should work out, no matter what. So that's what the Rebbe says in the beginning. But then, at the end of the Sikha, even though he says that the success over here was really beyond human ability, and that's really what the word Hatzlacha means. Success means more than Yagaiti and Matzasi. Usually we say Yagaiti according to the toil, Matzasi you will find. And over here the Rebbe says that this case of success is even beyond that. Even though we usually say that a find means something which is a disproportionate greater than even your toil. So there's one level of Yagaiti according to your toil, Matzasi you find. But there's even a greater level, Mazel Toiv, Hatzlacha, which is coming directly from a heavenly intervention, Lamaila, which is beyond anything you could accomplish. That's the first half of the Sikha. But then in the second half of the Sikha, it seems that he changes tracks a bit, and he says the truth is that the lesson we have to take from it is that when does this work, that this Hatzlacha comes beyond human achievement? When there's a conduit, when there's a shliach like Eliezer. And he says there's two conditions. See page 104, 105 and Chelik Chayei. So the first thing he says is that you have to be avdei avos. You have to have the self-nullification of an Eliezer. Eliezer was so nullified to Avram Avinu that it doesn't even say his name in the entire Parsha. I think the Rebbe brought that out many times. And when he was asked, who are you? How did he identify himself? Eved Avram Anochi. That's who I am. That's what defines my existence. But not only is he an Eved, everyone knows the famous Rashi, when Avram called Eliezer Damasek, it's in Parshas Lech Lecha. What does Rashi say in the word Damasek? Damasek means in Damascus, but he brings down from Gemara, Doshim Utrikin, Doile Umashke. The word Damasek stands for Doile Umashke, withdraw water and give drink. He would learn and teach Mitoilas Rabbi from the Torah of his master, from Avram Avinu, La'achirim to others. So not only is he like the trusted butler, who the master doesn't hold any secrets from him, he's the ultimate Eved, subject of the master, but he's also like the Talmud Muvak, Doilo Mashke. He's completely permeated with the values and the virtues of his master. And that's why Avram doesn't have to give any sign to tell him what to look for a prospective bride for Yitzchak. And Eliezer himself knows what to look for, the girl that would show and reflect kindness. Because Avram is kindness. So Avram is the ultimate of kindness, chesed. He doesn't have to tell Eliezer what to look for, because Eliezer is a Talmud Muvak, Doilo Mashke. Whatever he received from his master, he absorbed it, so therefore he understood what he has to look for. Midas Toivos and Chesed in a Shidduch. So the first thing the Rebbe says is you have to be an Eved. Eved Melech Melech, when you're completely subservient and selfless, then you become a vehicle through which the heavenly intervention works in a way which is beyond anything that a human being could accomplish. The second thing he says is that in connection to the Eved aspect, you have to have tefillah, prayer. And this is the title of today's shir, the power of prayer. And that's why we bring out the pasuk says by Eliezer that there was this unbelievable quality that Eliezer accomplished through his prayer that we don't see it by anybody else. It makes it unique and special. And he connects it with the Maimon Azal, which is also brought down in Rashi over here, and I think we spoke about it once before, about the idea of Yafos Ichoson Shalavde Ovis Miterosa Shalbanam. Rashi brings down, why did the Torah elaborate first in Avram speaking to Eliezer about the Shidduch, and then everything that happened to Eliezer, and the Torah goes into the details, and then Eliezer repeats the whole thing to Psuel and to Rivka's family, etc. And Rashi says, why? Because Yafos Ichoson shall avdei avos miterosa shel banim. So there's a lot to explain exactly what is the meaning of this. And we recently spoke about experience of the best teacher, Gedei l'shimusha yesem l'muda, similar over here. Since Eliezer is Eved Avram, so he's there the whole time and he serves Avram. He didn't only learn from a book, the scholarly essays, Deila Mashkim Miterasi Shalabai. That's one dimension. But he also inculcated and absorbed everything about the lifestyle of Avram Avinu 24/7. So it's behavior, not only study. That's Avdei Ovis, that he serves Avram. And he's completely bottled to Avram and nullified to Avram. And then Yofer Sichos Shel Avdei Ovis ain't Sicha Ela Tfilah. According to Chassidus, this means the superiority of davening over learning. Now that's a whole separate discussion. There's learning and there's davening. Over here we're speaking about the superiority of davening. That there's a certain self-nullification that's accomplished by davening. Like standing by Shemini Esrei, Amida shows on Bittul. In any case, the Rebbe in this Sikha says that when you have both of those factors together, when you have Eved and you have Tefillah, then you can see success guaranteed, so to speak. And then on page 105, he says something, and you have to read it yourself to see how far the Rebbe takes it. He says there are people that think that when it comes to shlichus, the main thing is to do. But if you don't see the results, so it's not their fault. They're not boss of the world. You can't guarantee that the other person is going to do the right thing. You don't have. Oh, but if the person you're trying to influence, on who you want to be mashpia, is an itkim balabas. You're not his master. Jener is abal bchira. The other person has free choice. You can't force him to do something which is opposite from his will. And as a matter of fact, in some sikhas, the Rebbe brings a famous Jewish saying, A'id darfton. A yid has to do. Ufton, accomplished after Eibishter. That means you have to do your part. Whether you see the results, whether you see the success or not, that's not in your hands always. That's the way it says in many places. In this sikha, there's a chidush. Wow. The Rebbe is saying that even the ufton part, the results, the success, and this is what we saw by Eliezer, success in his mission is also in your part. Obviously means to a certain extent, but I'm telling you what the Rebbe says there. Which that puts a whole different level of responsibility and involvement and engagement. This week is the Kinus HaShluchim. This Sikha is about the first Shliach, Eliezer. And he's saying, the Rebbe is demanding from us, each one of us, that we have to be involved all in, all out, do whatever it takes to win, to be matzliach. So you have to daven that it should be batzlocha, like Eliezer daven that it should be batzlocha, like the Chazan who's davening on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur before Chazor Hashatz. He's not only asking that he has permission to pray, but he's asking that he should see the results, the success of his prayers. And on this we have two stories, which bring out this point a bit. I do want to make a disclaimer that ultimately there is no guarantee, even though the Rebbe says puts the responsibility on the person. But in the end, we have to make it clear that if sometimes there's no success, are we going to blame it because the person didn't do the right thing? As I'm going to bring out a story from the Rebbe Rashab, a certain story. But what we're going to see from this story of the Rebbe Rashab was to how far you have to take it. So there's a story of the Rebbe Rashab, a famous story. He was once on a gathering, a conference. That was the Russian government wanted to institute new decrees. And there were a bunch of rabbis that were got together to try to stop it, prevent it from happening. Anyways, they weren't successful. And the Rebbe Rashab went to his room, and the Rebbe Rashab was close to another famous Torah giant, Reb Chaim Brisker, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik. And Reb Chaim Soloveitchik was walking by the Rebbe Rashab's room, and the door was open, and he saw the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab was crying. And Reb Chaim Soloveitchik told the Rebbe Rashab, Lubavitcher Rebbe, favos veintir. Lubavitcher Rebbe, why are you crying? But the Cheton alzes meken. We did whatever we could do. And the Rebbe Rashab told him, but we weren't successful. We didn't accomplish what we set out to accomplish. And the Rebbe explains in the Sikha that if a person is serving Hashem only as an employee, so then he says, okay, I did my job. You can't demand from me more, so therefore I won't be blamed for it. So therefore, I'm not going to be so hurt by it, by the fact that I wasn't successful. I did whatever I could do. But if a person makes it his very own, not like he's an employee, it's his life. It's a matter of life and death. It's his business. He's not the employee, he's the employer. He can't sleep at night right now. Like he's on the very same level as the enterprise of Yiddishkeit itself. So since he doesn't look at himself as an employee, that's how far you have to take it. And there's another similar story, which the Rebbe Chazed once or twice, and I remember hearing it once, and I can't remember exactly when I heard it, but it's a story with the Chafetz Chaim, that one time there was a Gzeira decree in Poland concerning Shechita, and representatives from the Chafetz Chaim were sent to the government to try to nullify this decree, and they weren't successful. So they came back to the Chafetz Chaim, and they told them the whole story. We said this, they said this, we tried everything, all the different arguments and all the different claims and everything went back and forth, nothing helped. We couldn't stop the decree. After the Chafetz Chaim heard them all report to him what happened, he said, did any of yous faint? I remember what the Rebbe said, Has chodj gechalish? Did anybody actually faint? If somebody would have fainted, one of the representatives would have fainted, then maybe the opposition, the government officials, would have seen how important it is to you, that it's a matter of life and death. Maybe that would have been effective. So this is the lesson that the Rebbe is telling us, that and the lesson that I'm taking to myself, that even though there's two sides to the coin, there's one side of the coin we have to know and realize that there's not necessarily any guarantees, and that you tried your best, and don't worry, you're not going to be blamed for it, etc., etc. But there's another level. You're a shliach. Do you project in your mission that it's a matter of life and death, that there's nothing more important? And this is, like we said many times, the famous Lashon that Rebbe said in the Sikha of Chavchas Nissen, Tut alles was kennt, do whatever you can. So I look at that Lashon, do whatever you can, as in one hand it's a leniency, but on the other hand it's a chumrah. It makes it even much more powerful. When the Rebbe says do whatever you can, on the one hand you could say whatever, which means whatever I'm doing for the purpose to bring Mashiach. I gave tzedakah before, it was for the purpose to bring Mashiach. Whatever I do is to bring Mashiach. But the other meaning of the words is tut alles was kennt. Do everything you can. Can anybody go to sleep at night and say, I did everything I can? And that's the beauty b'chlal of the Rebbe when he demands from us. There's always two sides to it, the paradox. And l'chaim, every one of us, I'm talking to myself in particular, every one of us should live with this cry of the Rebbe, since we are shluchim, and we're all on a mission, and we're soldiers of Hashem, to try to make the world a better place. We have to live with this cry, Tut alles was you can. Do whatever you can. And I have to ask myself seriously, have I done whatever I can? And this inspires me and galvanizes all of us to continue our mission to spreading light and warmth and love to every single Yid. And when we'll do our part, so then we'll accomplish, like what the Rebbe says in the Sikha, that not only will we put ourselves all in, but we'll see the hatzlacha, as the Rebbe explains in the Sikha concerning the Mishnah of Eliezer, and the ultimate hatzlacha is going to be the Gula Amitis Vashlema, take it from Yad Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.